I started listening to today. Tom Welling
Oh yes,
and Michael
Michael.
Rosenbaum have a
Yes,
yeah they did a podcast called Talkville,
I
which
love
is
it.
them rewatching Smallville themselves and then talking about
That's
everything
insane.
from behind the scenes. And I was like, that's pretty cool. I think that's pretty neat of them to be able to do that. It's not. Um, I don't think it's easy, to talk about something you've done. And they even say a few times that, um, they had to take this time off because they didn't want to talk about it when they were done. So I'll talk about that a little bit more too. Um, but yeah,
I
it's,
want to talk about that actually. I was out before you said I want to talk about that in the show. I was hoping that was going to make the show because man, Smallville is near and dear to my heart. I barely remember anything, obviously, but like I will watch it again, and it'll be a new experience for me. But like so near and dear. I think it's a mate. How do I put this? I remember my former sister-in-law, she's an actress, and actually totally random. I'm not gonna go to tangent. Anyway, um, but like she said, it's a job like anything else. Like, don't be fooled. Like these people do not like each other. Like it's just a job. But I don't know. Like the fact that Tom and Michael are actually is it Michael? Is it his name? Yeah,
yeah,
Rosenbaum. Yeah, that are still doing this. No, I think there was something special about that show. I do know that Annette O'Toole apparently was not like she didn't show up to the, whatever the rap party. Like I know there was issues there. But I think beyond her, like I don't know. I think there was a bond, and it was. I think that show was special. It was the first of its kind. I think it was the
yeah,
first.
yeah.
Like,
It definitely launched the superhero um, kind of on TV. I know they've had it before. Like they had the Flash before. They had what was it? Lois and Clark was the one with
yeah,
Terry Hatcher.
yes, and Dean Cain.
So
Yeah.
they've been there, like they've done it, but this one was successful. This one launched
The teen version.
everything. Yeah, like Arrow came after,
Yes,
um, and they thought about a couple of spin-off shows. As a matter of fact, the guy that played Reacher
correct.
was going to do an Aquaman
Aquaman.
spinoff, and that didn't land. And then they thought about doing Green Arrow with Justin Hartley, and that didn't land. And so they just kind of stuck with what they had. And then, Arrow started his own thing like right afterwards. But it was interesting to listen to the first two episodes, actually. That's what I got through today. Um, and I guess we'll just talk about this in the pre-show and then roll into the regular show. But it's cool. Like it's really cool because they talk about one of the things to talk about in the second episode of the podcast is how, yeah, at some point somebody came on set and said, "Hey, you guys have something really special here," and they weren't actually talking about the production. They weren't talking about the show itself. They were talking about the cast and how they got along. And Tom said that somebody told him along the way um, that you're not going to get that again. Like it's rare. Like you talk about the people that end up in environments like that is Star Trek: The Next Generation, right? That
Yeah,
like they're best friends and always have been. Um, but most shows, you see a lot of people that come to work to do the job and leave, and that's fair. I mean, it's work and whatever, and it's really interesting because they also cover the fact that like people don't understand that Tom Welling wasn't really an actor before this started. He hadn't done
no,
much. He had
he's a
actually done
model.
modeling and stuff.
Yes,
And when this show was running, it was 22 to 24 episodes a season, filming for 10 months. Like this dude basically gave up 10 years of his life to do this show. Um, and because even Rosenbaum bowed out around season 7.
yes.
Um, and, and so like he really gave up a good chunk of his life and has no, it's kind of like when I look at myself, having a daughter at 20, like I don't know what the normal person's 20s are like because I was a dad. Like I was an adult right away. I didn't have a normal person's 20s. I wasn't a party person anyways, but like my 20s were different than the average person's 20s. And Rosenbaum, or sorry, Tom Welling's
Bowen,
kind of in the same boat. He was 21 when he started doing Smallville. And so his entire 20s were dedicated to being Clark Kent.
and we're all the same age. And my entire
Yeah.
20 was me. And this is actually gonna like bleed into the whole Woodstock thing as well. Like my entire 20s was me trying to break into the bubble of like the industry, because I literally only went to college to basically have my metaphorical like parachute. Like, okay, I'm not gonna,
Hmm.
I need a college education so that if I don't become an MTV VJ, uh, a pop R&B singer, or a Rolling Stone journalist, at least I have a degree to get a fucking job.
Yeah.
So like my basically my 20s was like breaking in the bubble, and by like 25 I was like, okay, I think this isn't gonna happen. So I started to like, lower my expectations, and become more normal. But yeah, it you actually bring up a good point. Like, I wonder what is like a normal 20s, because the other thing that I would actually say, and I'm totally tangenting, but hopefully I'm not, is like, have you heard of the thing, the quarter life crisis? Because I don't know if you've heard of it, but
Mm-mm.
I've talked to people. I totally had it. The quarter life crisis is kind of like at 25, between 25 to like 28. You're like, what is my life? Like, what am I doing? Like, this was not the plan. I'm not happy. I'm actually pretty fucking depressed. And it was like, so, and especially, I think that's also part of why I even tuned out of music, because I was getting depressed, because now it's like, growing up, all like the stars were older than me, right?
Yep.
And
Yep.
then it's like they're all my age, so I'm starting to go, I'm running out of time. And then they're all younger than me. I'm like, this is bullshit. Like, I think my catchphrase is just some bullshit. Anyway, but it's like, so that was like, so I literally had to just kind of tune out because I didn't want to feel that FOMO. But yeah, Tom Welling is 95. He is our age, I think.
Yeah. He's.
Again,
I think he's a year or two younger because it started in 2000. So yeah, I mean that's actually right around the same age as us. Yeah,
yeah. Because I know
maybe
someone who
he's
went
a
to school with
hair
him
younger.
in
Because
Rosenbaum.
and Rosenbaum was 26 when it started, so Rosenbaum's a little older than me. He's like a year or two older, and Welling's a year or two younger, right? Like so,
You know,
like right in between.
I'm Googling it because you know how I am. So hold on a second. Tom
Yeah, but it's funny. Like it's funny you say that while you're looking that up. Like I tell
45.
people, what's that?
He's 45, according to April
Which one?
26th. Tom Welling,
Welling?
April 26th,
Oh, okay,
1977. He's
okay.
us.
Um, and so, but I'll tell anybody that'll listen and cares, because my advice really isn't worth shit. But I would tell anybody, not for any religious reason, not for any other reason, if you can do it, go to school, get a job, meet your person, date, travel, then marry, then kids. And like, don't worry about your relationship until you're like 25. Like, do as much as you can when you're young, because you don't get that opportunity. It's a lot easier to travel and do the things that I wasn't able to do until I was like 40. I didn't go to Italy till I was 40.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people that are able to do international travel and travel across the country and do all this stuff in their 20s because they have no commitments, And if you're, the other thing is to be smart with your money, which I also was not. I was terrible with my money in my younger years. Um, And if you're smart with your money, you can travel. You can do all kinds of shit before you're committed to anything. And 30 is still young enough to be a parent. Like while my daughter was born, she was born on my 20th birthday. So like literally my 20s were dedicated to being a parent. And I wouldn't change that. Like for me, that was fine. Um, but my boys weren't born until after I was 30. And so, I can attest to being a parent at 30 is totally fine. So if that's like your life goal, you want to be a parent, starting at 30 is not a bad place. You can do a lot before then and still be productive. So it's interesting, and it just comes from, my own life experience, and I've kind of done a little bit of both, the young parent thing and the old parent thing. And um yeah. So, but back to Talkville, which is the podcast about Smallville. I definitely recommend it. They do go episode by episode, so you can watch the pilot, listen to the show, and it's just for the first two episodes, it's just Tom and Rosie and their producer, who hasn't watched the show either, so he's watching for the first time while they go back and rewatch and talk about their experiences, but then he gets to ask them questions. They have a phone number you can dial into, and ask questions if you want to as a fan, all kinds of cool stuff. And then I think in one of the upcoming episodes, Kristen Crook is going to be on.
Excellent.
They've joked about getting Amy Adams on because she was a guest in one of the season 1 episodes.
Oh, wow.
Mm-hmm. It's a trip. It's a trip. Hopefully they get Jensen Ackles at some point because he had a pretty good run there. They said it and I had totally forgotten. Like I remember him being what's her name's son. He was the son
Correct.
of
It was what's her name? Solitaire from Live and Let Die. Jane Seymour.
Yeah, there you go, Jane Seymour. Dr. Quinn, Medicine Woman. He played her son, but before he even showed up as her son, the same character was a football coach who was dating Lana in I think season 2 or season 3.
That's
which was creepy in its own right. When you look back, it was creepy in its own right because he was technically not in high school, but then he's dating like this high school junior in Kristen Crook, who's, I mean, she's beautiful, whatever. But you look back now and you're like, I probably wouldn't make that on a show these days unless the show was weird. But they also talk about like how brutal the pilot was. Like
okay, first of all,
she watches her parents die right in front of her when they get hit by meteors. Like it's brutal.
now what's really super crazy is, believe it or not, as much as of a fan as I am, Kevin, I never saw the pilot.
It's good, and they actually talk about how like
the Matthew
how
Shepard thing.
it's the best part of the first few episodes because they spent an entire month filming it. They had the big budget for the pilot because it's the pilot. So you go from this episode that's really good, where you introduce all the characters, they all have their moments. They're all great actors. Annette O'Toole, John Glover, John Schneider.
Casting was phenomenal.
Yeah, like they're all great. So the introductions that they have in that pilot episode are fantastic. And then they start immediately with their kind of freak of the week thing, which is, and it even Rosenbaum was like, yeah, it falls off a little bit. It's not as good as the pilot, but at the same time, you can't expect it to be good as good as the pilot. They filmed that in 10 days versus 30 days. And the budget was less and all those things that you have when you're doing a pilot versus the first episode. But what's really cool is to get 2 different takes on the show. Rosenbaum had already done a good amount of acting before Smallville started. I think he was in Urban Legends, the first Urban Legends movie before Smallville. And so he had done some stuff. He'd been around, but this was Tom Welling's first thing. So it's funny for him to explain like what it's like to be completely naive on set, right? Like you just go with things that other people wouldn't go with because you don't know any better. So you just roll with it. So it's really cool. It's a really cool show. Like I said, I've only watched 2 episodes or listened to 2 episodes. I haven't watched the show. I may stop listening, watch the show, and then come back and listen and kind of watch and then listen just so I'm familiar with what they're talking about or more familiar. Because it's been a while since I've actually watched the show. But it's cool. It's really cool. So
last question.
Yeah.
One is because again, I was like I said, there was a website called Krypton site. I mean, that's how
Oh yeah.
with that damn show.
I know exactly what site you're talking about.
Yes.
Yeah, I went there all the time.
So I was totally team, like I learned the term slash or even shipping from this damn show. So I was team Clark and Chloe. I know like didn't happen. So do they ever talk about Allison? Because I think Chloe is such a big part of the show.
At some point they will. They steered away from that even at conventions for a long time. And then within the last couple of years, I think I've seen them talking about it more comfortable with it because it's such public knowledge now that it's not so weird. I know at one point they actually, like, Kristen Crook showed up to that same cult. Like she showed up to NXIVM and she didn't commit in the same way, obviously. But yeah, I'm sure it'll come up at some point. But at the same time, it feels like they're going to stay pretty focused on the show.
Yeah.
So it probably won't. If it comes up, it won't linger.
Fair.
And to be fair, if they stick with the context of the show, they probably won't really have anything negative to say about it. Like, she was good in her part. Like, I
And
know, like, Offset, she was a crazy person or whatever, um, but I never disliked Chloe. I didn't want them to be together. I was always, as soon as she showed up, I was Team Lois. Like, I was in love with Erica Durant. She's gorgeous. But she was also, for me, it wasn't fair because she was 20, or 20, in her 20s. But like, she was a really good Lois Lane. Like, she was sassy. She did not give a shit. But it worked to the advantage that she was also a younger Lois Lane, so she didn't have to be as professional as Lois has had to be in everything else. Whereas, and I've said this a few times, I think on Twitter and stuff, is that I do believe that Bitsy Tulloch, who's playing Lois Lane now in Superman and Lois, is the better Lois Lane. I think she's the best Lois Lane I've seen. I love her as Lois Lane, but she's a mature, married, grown up mother. Like, she's the grown up Lois Lane, but she stuck to her guns in episode 1. She loses her job. That's why they end up back at Metropolis, because she stands up to her boss at the Daily Planet and she gets fired. But she totally, like, you could, if you watch Smallville and watch this, you could see like how they could go from point A to point B, but it's definitely a journey. Like, it's not like they're not the same character. One is a kid and one's an adult. And so that's it's a cool transition to see, because I love them both, and I always liked Erica Durant as Lois, but I think Bitsy Tulloch is doing an amazing job.
And going back to Chloe really quick before we transition back, is
Mm-hmm.
like, for me, bringing her up, it was more about just celebrating the character of Chloe than talking about any of the outside stuff. I just feel like it's a shame that sometimes when controversy happens, you almost throw out the art with the person, where it's like, no, let's separate the art from the person, because the art was still good. And I do think, I mean, I really, as a character, I mean, I really, really, really loved Chloe. And it's crazy how she was literally a character made up for the show. Like, she didn't exist for
Yeah.
the show.
I think they'll have to bring her up, because there are some very Chloe centric episodes, and some things that drive the show do revolve around her. It'll be interesting too, because they've talked about having Sam Jones III on there too. He's the guy that played Pete,
Yeah.
his best friend. He had some issues, legal issues, criminal
Yes.
issues for a little bit. But they, when they mentioned him, they were very positive about him.
Good.
So, whatever issues he had, didn't seem to affect them as people. So it sounds like they're going to try and get him on.
Awesome.
So yeah, so it's cool. Definitely check it out if you enjoyed the show. Like I said, I would say, if you can, watch the pilot and then watch the first episode. Again, even as a pilot, it was only a 1 hour pilot.
Yeah.
So
I gotta find it. It's definitely
um,
streaming somewhere.
yeah, and they talk about it too in the very first episode, about how, and really briefly, but how the show launched right after 9/11,
Yes,
like literally like a month after 9/11,
I remember.
and how timely that was, and it almost did kind of work in their favor, because the world needed a hero at that time,
Somebody
and
saved me.
so, which wasn't in the pilot. It's not the theme song in the pilot. It's not until the second episode.
Oh my god.
Yeah,
Ah,
yeah, it's
I
cool
got
stuff.
chills.
Cool
All
stuff.
right.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
you got to watch the pilot though. The pilot's great. Um, the first meeting of Clark and Lex is fantastic. If you watch the first season, I mean, they rehash it a bazillion times, but it's cool to see it for the first time. But with that, welcome to the All Pop No Culture podcast. I am the host this week, Kevin. I am joined, as almost always, by Andrew.
Hello, everybody.
Everybody else is struggling this week. Pete's daughter had school this week, and it wasn't the best week ever. So he is actually being a good parent, which shocks me. I can't picture it. But yeah, he's with his daughter, making sure she is happy. Kim was feeling under the weather, so we'll let that pass. She's hopefully feeling better by the time we drop this episode. Andy is out doing Andy things, possibly line dancing, which is just the weirdest thing I think I've ever heard. as an adult male. Um, but he's out doing it. Hopefully that works out for him and doesn't land him in jail. Um, and yeah, if I edit this right, you already heard us talk about the Talkville podcast on on all the platforms. I believe it's a YouTube video also. They're good about doing that. But they're also on all the podcast platforms. I listen to them on Apple Podcasts, but I'm sure they're on Spotify and everything else. And very cool. So with it just being Andrew and I, we're going to have a few new things and a whole lot of rehashing of things. And speaking of rehashes, Andrew talked about it a couple weeks ago, but I watched Black Phone last night because it dropped on Peacock. So if you're listening or watching, your Comcast subscriber, Peacock is free. If you're paying for Peacock, Black Phone is on there. And I'll just start off saying, definitely go watch it. It's a good movie. I thought Ethan Hawke was creepy as all holy shit. Like funny enough, one of my complaints about the movie is I actually don't think he was in it enough. But yeah, dude, like it was definitely a different Ethan Hawke. Like growing up on films like The Explorers and seeing him and in all the things we've seen him, even in Moon Knight, he wasn't this creepy. Like, like this is a creepy ass Ethan Hawke.
He was actually, I think I may have said this the last time, Ethan was scared. Like he was like, I don't want people to think of me as a villain. And I think he filmed this before Moon Knight, I think. So
Mhm.
either way, he was worried but I think that he actually I think he's a good villain. And I wasn't ready. Like, so you're right. Like I wasn't ready. It was almost like almost even Hannibal Lecter-esque. Like it was just kind of like you are
Yeah.
like that one scene where he's sitting in the kitchen, like with his shirt off, with the belt in his hand or whatever.
Yeah. Just like
That was
waiting.
just waiting.
Oh,
Like, yo. So yeah.
yeah. I mean, it was really good. I will say the one thing I don't know if it's a complaint as much as it was a surprise to me. I didn't know how supernatural it was.
Mm.
I wasn't ready for that, so that was actually a little jarring for me.
Huh.
I was expecting it to be a psycho and a kid, and the kid working through it. So the bulk of the film is supernatural.
Yes.
Um, and for a second, it almost plays like maybe the kid's just losing his shit, like he's just in this thing. But then you've got the sister with her stuff. Um, and there's a few things that were a little convenient in it. But I mean, the acting was amazing. Like I said,
Yes.
Ethan Hawke was great. The supernatural bit of it almost made everything just kind of too easy. Like the fact that, at one point she's talking to the cops and they're just like, okay. And they send like a full force of cops somewhere. You're like, this is a little girl that told you about a dream she had. It's not quite as bad as the ending of Old for me, where it's just ridiculous, but at the same time, like I don't know uh that would have happened that way, which is the only stretch for me.
Well, I mean, okay, so
um
my only thing though is like I feel like I felt like it was kind of earned because she like they brought her into the police station because she had demonstrated like I'm remembering that she knew a
yeah,
detail that they were like there, how did you know that? Like, so they knew there was something. And her crazy ass dad, who's like totally abusive, which that was like rough to watch, that whole scene in the kitchen where he's like whipping
when
her.
he
I'm
yeah
like, whoa. And that's what I'm saying. So like this kid is acting this so well, but that's got to be rough on a kid to have to act that. So I was a little worried, but she's precocious. Like when she
yeah
curses at the cop in the police station, the theater, we all lost our shit. She's
well,
hilarious.
even the way that scene ends, when she's getting
Yeah,
beat and she turns around and looks at him, like she's still standing up, like she's tough.
yeah,
And like she fights on her brother's behalf. She fucking knocks a kid in the head with a rock. Like she's she's a little badass.
So for me,
Um,
it's like so we know that the mom had some sort of supernatural ability, and now
mhm,
she has
mhm.
it. And if and I just like the fact that I like that bond between, again, I talk about brother and sister, because without
Yeah.
that bond, like, brother was a goner for sure, in my
Oh
opinion.
yeah.
And it's like she saved his life because she, and it's like I feel like they both had like kind of equal um just importance to the film, and I liked that because I do think that we're just getting better at more balanced storytelling when it
Hmm.
comes to gender. And that's why, like, that was a huge part of why I liked the movie. So for me, it was like I think the cops knew that she had something. So for me, it wasn't like, hey, we're on this island and like we're yet 2 days ago we were kids, now we're
Yeah,
adults.
yeah, yeah,
Oh, okay. Like
yeah.
I
It's
feel like
not
there's a
that
little bit more
ridiculous, right?
to it, but I hear you. But keep going. I'm sorry. I want to make sure
Yeah,
I.
no, I mean that is arguably my biggest complaint.
Okay.
Um, it was just a little funky again, and that probably, like I said, comes out of me not being prepared for it to be supernatural. Like in the way that it's supernatural, almost leans more towards Stranger Things than it does towards like Silence of the Lambs, which is kind of the idea that I had, is that yeah, this is a psychological, realistic story of a kid stuck in a bunker, and I didn't even know what the phone did, like nothing about it. I just knew that it existed. Um, and so it helps to a degree too that I think I only saw one trailer ever, like one real trailer. Um, but but yeah, I mean, it was really well done. The amount of freedom that the kid had in the basement was a little crazy. Like he kind of went to town down there. Um, the fact that like the crazy brother is trying to figure shit out but has no idea was a trip. Um, but I mean, it was good. I had a good laugh in the text. I sent it out. But like the opening scene, it's just a message to little boys, man. The little girls are trouble.
Yes.
He's pitching in this game and he's up 2 strikes on the batter, and he looks over and there's a cute girl that he sees, and the next thing he does is give up the home run to lose the game. Uh, and I was just like, man, ease up, kid. You got time. Um, but yeah, I'm trying to think. I thought I had another thing or two to say about it, but it was good. It was suspenseful. Um, and I can't talk enough about Ethan Hawke. Like he was creepy as shit. Like you in a lot of situations like this, when you have seen the trailer, if you've seen the posters, an actor will lean on the mask that he's wearing in that case to be the part that's creepy. And it was like it definitely made him a little creepier. But I mean, the way he talked, he didn't have any kind of accent, and it was still his voice. But I mean, the way he talked was creepy. His eyes, like he was a creepy son of a bitch. Um, and it doesn't feel like it's part of some kind of horror trilogy or anything like that. Like I think it's over. It's a one-off story. The one complaint that I did have also actually is that it doesn't ever explain his motivations. Like like was that done to him as a kid and he had to do it? Like why is he as crazy as he is? Because the brother, besides enjoying his, nose candy, is relatively normal,
Yes.
you know. Um, so I don't know that it explains the motivations there, and I'm all for uh, a character being just absolutely psychotic, but I almost think that putting his brother in there kind of negates that a little bit. Like, if his brother's so normal, why is he so crazy? Um, but that's
So
more of a wish than a complaint. Like, I just wish I knew more about the character
mhm.
than anything else.
So what one thing I like that you said Stranger Things, because I definitely liked the kind of atmospheric nostalgic vibe of the movie, and it definitely, I think, captured the zeitgeist of like the 70s with like Son of Sam and all that, and I do
Hmm.
think us, even growing up, we were kind of warned to like not talk to strangers, and we with
Oh,
people
for sure.
entertainment, like all these things like played out in the movie. So it's like, no, this was real. Like this before internet, before like there were creepy people out there doing messed up stuff to people. So I liked that. I felt that the movie was very atmospheric. The director, what's his name, Derrickson, from Marvel
Hmm.
for Doctor Strange, he had a similar childhood, he said. So a lot of what you see in that film is based on what he went through. So that's why it feels so visceral. But it was said it was even worse. But he had to like reel it in for the damn movie. And me having, I know you have like big dogs, so but I'll just say it for me, like I am not, I actually I have a phobia. Like if I see a Doberman or a pit bull or something big that I don't know, like I'm definitely staying the hell away. So I just remember that when I think the kid told him to grab the meat, I was like, what? But then it was almost like, did the kid know? Like, pretty cool. Like without that meat,
Yeah.
he was
Yeah,
he
he
was
was stuck down there. Like
you
the cops
know?
would have stayed across the street and not found him. Like, yeah, it was it was cool. I mean, it was a well written, well architected story. Um, like I said, that there's a couple of complaints that I have that are minor enough. Like I enjoyed it. I would definitely recommend it to anybody. Like if I'm complaining in this one, I'm nitpicking. Because the performances were fantastic. I think Jeremy Davies, I love him, the guy that plays the dad. Uh,
Oh, I've never
he
seen him before.
if we ever get back to watching Lost, he's on in the later seasons of
Oh,
Lost.
we'll get him. We'll
And
do it.
he's been around. Like he's been in lots of stuff. He usually plays a little more neurotic character. Like he's kind of that kind of actor. But I like him as an actor, and he did a fantastic job as the dad. Like that guy sucked,
I hated
you
him.
know? Yeah,
But the
yeah.
thing is, I hated him. But the thing is, you could tell he loved his daughter. Like he did. Like he didn't know how to love her because
Hmm.
I remember like I know he drove her somewhere. Did he drive her to the house? Is that what he did towards the end of the movie? I remember he drove her somewhere, and I'm just kind of like, okay, so he's not a complete asshole. He's just
Well, and he's an alcoholic, like
yes.
big time, which doesn't help. And then there's also discussion in that scene where he's beating her, where he's comparing her to her mom. So I think there's some, a little bit of blame there or fear there that he does not handle, right? Like he's either worried that he's going to become her mom, because I think he says that she took her own life, that their mom couldn't handle the visions that she had
Oh,
and ended up taking her own life. I think that comes out in that scene. Um, and I might be misremembering, but I think that comes up. And so, if he's an alcoholic and he lost his wife and he was left with two kids, and then one of those kids starts doing the things that his wife did, like I don't sympathize. Like I don't think he is doing the right thing, but I can see how he ended up where he is.
fair.
Um, and like I said, he as an actor, I'm a big fan of his in the small things that he does. He's never going to be, he's never going to be Brad Pitt. Like he's never going to headline a movie. Um, but in the roles that he has, I've always liked him, or I
Awesome.
liked his work. Obviously, don't like him in this movie. Um, but yeah, he's really. It's a cool flick, and the fact that um, I think if you have a nice sized TV and a nice dark room, you can watch it at home.
Yeah.
If you're not like me and the theater is somewhere near you and it's playing and you've got a couple of bucks, go see it in the theater. I think that atmosphere works for a film like this because it's darker and grittier, and you're less likely to be distracted by your phone and things like that. Um, but yeah, for me, it's definitely it's a must watch. Like I think people should see this movie. I think the praise that it got was earned.
Nice.
So,
All right.
and then you
Yes.
you watched the Woodstock and not the little birdie from Snoopy.
Yes. The Woodstock train wreck. Woodstock
Mhm.
99. Man. Um, all right. So I'm gonna tell a little story. Back in 1994, I got my wisdom teeth out, summer of 94. And I remember, after I got them out, I'm just like in in my room, whatever, watching Woodstock 94 on MTV and seeing feeling FOMO. This looks so fun. Like you've got Green Day, you've got Nine Inch Nails, you've got I want to say Aerosmith was there, Salt and Pepper was there. Like this was like the biggest concert that had happened since probably
Mm-hmm.
Woodstock itself. So yeah. And like when I come around, but like with the mud sling, that was everything. Okay. 5 years later, they do Woodstock 99. Um, the cool thing you learn from this documentary, I'm not going to spoil everything, but like the cool thing you learn is that this guy named Michael Lang, who he actually was an organizer for the 69 Woodstock. He's in the film, the film that came out that year. He organized 94 and he also organized 99. Very soft-spoken, naive, hippie-ish kind of guy. If I had to guess, probably ENFP. But this documentary makes the Fire Festival look like the Four Seasons. It's man, like I learned a new medical term called trench mouth. Okay. So trench mouth is something that happens to you when your mouth is exposed to fecal matter. And and you start getting ulcers and sores in your mouth and your tongue. You get a sore throat. And there are people who got trench mouth at Woodstock. I'll explain, soon. Um, there's 3 episodes to this documentary, and they're appropriately titled Episode 1, How the Fuck Did This Happen? Episode 2, Kerosene, Match, Boom. And Episode 3, You Can't Stop a Riot in the 90s. It was 3 days. And Friday to Saturday to Sunday got progressively more nuts. They had about 250,000 people at this concert. Um,
Was it actually at Woodstock? Like,
no,
okay,
that's one of the problems. Okay, so there was Woodstock, and there was the 94 one was at a venue where there was a lot of grass and everything, but it rained. So that's why all the mud happened.
that's right. That's right. Yeah.
There was mud and shit all mixed up, whatever. And this one was on an Air Force base or a military base that was closing down in Rome, New York, upstate New York. So as someone who attended the festival in Las Vegas in May, let me tell you, when the sun is beating down on asphalt, it's
That's
hot,
hot. Yeah.
hot. Okay. And mind you, this is 1999, and they're charging $4 for a bottle of water. $4 for a bottle of water in 2022 is a lot of money. So you can imagine what that's like in 1999.
Yeah.
So people are getting dehydrated left and right. People are getting angry. There's violence happening. It's like, I mean, my goodness. It what I like about the documentary is they interview all the people who were involved, whether you were MTV, like Ananda Lewis is there, Kurt Loder is there. They interview the organizers themselves, Michael Lang, as well as his partners. And what's crazy about it is they'll talk about what happened. But what you'll notice is that despite all the things going wrong, like Michael and his partner, they're kind of like, like it couldn't be helped. Like we're not accepting blame for this. Like this was like the fault of the kids. Like it's a different generation, and it's a sad statement to what we've become. There's a young guy, okay, who was younger, who was warning them, who was telling them things like, you guys shouldn't do this. Like these acts you're booking, like Limp Bizkit and Korn, they're just gonna get people fired up. Like you're not
Mhm.
like, do not do like, and they would tell him, shut up. Like we like, shut up, little young kid. Like he was the canary in the coal mine, and they weren't listening to him. Um, you know, I feel like I'm talking in a bit of a scattered, but I just got to do this right. Okay. So the first day it happens, things are going great, whatever. Oh, one more thing. There's also kids who went, like the kids who went to the festival, a few kids, and they're now grown up and they're speaking about their experience. And it's just so cool to like see footage of the concert and then getting their reactions as far as like what they were thinking as it was going down. Um, I'm trying to remember like literally like what happened in each episode, but let me tell you, it just got worse and worse and worse. Limp Bizkit in particular, that was the kerosene match boom episode. They have the time of their lives. Instead of making the crowd calm down, they make the crowd go nuts. But ultimately, I'm just gonna skip right to the third piece. Ultimately, Michael Lang's dumbass, okay, during the Red Hot Chili Peppers set, he wants to have a moment where everyone's lighting candles, or yeah, lighting candles to have kind of a nice, peaceful, beautiful candlelit situation, and it's all about stopping gun violence. This is the third day. People have suffered through um, toilet porta potties overflowing, shit getting into the water supply, people getting trench mouth, people smelling, and I haven't even gotten to the sexual assault part. That was rampant, like gang stuff happening, like you know what I'm saying, like it was just
Mm-hmm.
bad. So people are so fed up. You give them fire, they're going to start lighting shit on fire. And there was literally fires happening, blazes happening. Fatboy Slim is DJing at this rave, and he literally had to like escape. Like the crowd was getting so rowdy because someone drove a van. Someone like grabbed a van from somewhere and drove a van onto the dance floor. And they're like, okay, like we have to stop the music and we cannot turn this music back on until you get this van out of here. Oh, and in the van, yeah, they found a girl passed out, pants on her, like down to her ankles. Like it was horrible. They took her obviously away. But the crowd, instead of like moving the damn van, they're like getting mad and start throwing shit at Fatboy Slim and everybody there. So they're like, okay, Fatboy, you go escape. We'll take care of your equipment. And you know, and he just got out of there, and like he had to escape. And on Sunday night, when the fire started happening, like you literally see MTV, like they're like, okay, guys, we're out. Like for our safety, let's just get out of here. And it wasn't until the National Guard came in with like nightsticks and like face shields, beating people. You know, it was horrible. But let me tell you, as someone who has no attention span, which is me, I was transfixed. I watched the first episode like straight through on like Sunday night last week, and the second and third episodes on Monday night. Like, and that's I'm telling you that I don't do that. So there's a bit of a monologue. I'm usually big on not trying to like talk too long in one go. But and I even talked about like how it affected me because I have more thoughts on this, but I want you to jump in here. But like, man, um, everyone who has seen it in my feed has said it was damn good. And I'm telling you guys, it was damn good. I've told you maybe 20% of what I saw. There's so much more, so much better. And it's graphic. Like there's mad nudity. Like it's stuff that you would not see unless it was on streaming, and it's on streaming. So it was my house.
It's on Netflix, right?
Correct.
Yeah, it's funny. I remember there being chaos of it, but I don't remember the whole thing. I think somewhere, I think actually after that, I went to Not So Silent Night one year. Um, and it was, I got to see Linkin Park, Eminem, Limp Bizkit, Papa Roach,
Oh wow.
and somebody else. They were smaller sets because it was just a one night thing. Again, not so silent night back in, might have been San Jose. I think it was a bigger venue than San Jose though.
Shoreline, maybe.
I don't remember, but like the one thing I could say about Limp Bizkit, seeing them live at like their height, they put on a decent show. Like they had, this must have been their second or third album. They had a big like Gundam suit looking robot on stage, like not that moved. It was only like from like the chest up, but it was like this giant robot. Like they did all this shit. Their lighting was legit. You know, Eminem came out with a chainsaw and a fucking
Yeah, the mask.
Jason mask and Jason Voorhees mask. Fake chainsaw, obviously, but and like I remember a lot of that concert. Like Papa Roach was really good. Chester Bennington played cello on stage when he did My December, which was a hell of a thing. Like, so I can imagine the expectations that people had about Woodstock 99, like knowing what I saw, if I had seen that somewhere else or bits and pieces of that, and thinking about going to the show where you're going to see Chili Peppers, where you're going to see Limp Bizkit, where you're going to see all these people, um, and then having it go to shit. Like I can't imagine, like, because it couldn't have been cheap. Like just the tickets alone couldn't have
Oh
been cheap,
no.
let alone everything else. And so when you're trying to get your money's worth and survive this thing that's going to shit, like I can see like this escalation, like in my head. I haven't watched the documentary, but like you paid, so you want to see it all. It starts to go to shit, but you're committed to staying as it gets worse. So you're getting angrier, and it's getting worse. And like just again, like an explosion, you give
Yes.
angry people fire, and they're gonna make a lot of fire.
Yes. I mean, it was like Break Stuff, I think was one of their songs. And
Yep,
I gotta give it to him. Like, why am I forgetting his name? The lead singer of Limp
Fred
Bizkit.
Durst.
Thank you, Fred Durst. Like, he had the whole crowd in the palm of his hand. So that had to be a
Mhm.
great moment. Like to just kind of just know that 250,000 people are like in the palm of my hand, and I'm gonna give it to him. And he did. But unfortunately, like when they were trying like to calm them down, he's like, no, dude, like that's not who we are. Like we
Yeah,
do stuff, and
yeah.
like and that's totally what
Did you say
happened.
Corn was there too?
Korn was there, and
Yeah,
Korn,
it's the same thing. Like Corn isn't. They're not a chill band.
they were Friday night, so it was like, and I think that, but I think the guy lead singer of Korn, he's more of a chill dude. Like you even see it in the documentary. Like he knew, like we 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 got the energy going, but we didn't go nuts with it. He was actually looking at the promoters like, y'all, you guys were not prepared. Like you guys, it was not good. Um, a cool thing I'll say that James Brown opened the show. Okay.
Oh yeah, that's awesome.
And basically, but the cool story there was James Brown typically wants to be paid his whole fee before it goes on, where it's a standard for them to pay half the fee and then they'll pay you the rest of it when you're done. It was my money, but it's really cool because then finally, like, he just goes on because he realizes that this crowd is like a once in a lifetime thing. I gotta do this shit. So the show started off, I think, good, but then it just evolved because the infrastructure was horrible. Like the security was bad. Like they were just taking anybody off the street to be security. um Again, the having it on the tarmac was horrible. And when the porta potties and the garbage situation is not being handled properly, it just devolved into chaos. And I cannot wait to get even more opinions on it. But last but not least, here's the last thing I was going to say. I was someone who wanted that life. I wanted to be at festivals and concerts, and I had FOMO. That's why I started with my whole wisdom teeth thing. Kevin, after seeing that documentary, I'm like, I am so glad I never went to any of that shit. I never want stretch mouth. I do not like stinky people. I don't like dirt. And I can only imagine the rank odors that were
Yeah.
everywhere by Sunday. Because even if you showered, you were showering in shit water, like literally. That's why people were getting sick. There was species in the water. They took the water to a lab, and they said by the next morning there was like mold everywhere, like in the sample. It was disgusting. So
That's foul. That's awful.
yeah, I look
Yeah.
forward to your thoughts on it.
Yeah, I'll have to check it out. It's not something that I would think that I would watch because I don't I don't actively remember the festival. You know what I mean? But it sounds interesting enough, and knowing what bands are there and knowing the time. Like I was
Yes.
actually I wasn't like I didn't follow every single band. Like I wasn't necessarily a Corn fan, but I knew of Corn. Like I know their music. I know what they did. So like I remember these bands at that time. So I think it'd actually be pretty interesting to watch, even
It's
if I, like I
nostalgia.
said, I don't, um, even if I didn't necessarily follow everything. I think it'd be really cool to see. Um, so yeah, I'll check it out. I'm really curious about it now.
I keep on
Um,
talking. I was just gonna say it's also a reminder of how old we are. Like it's crazy to me
oh
how
shit,
like it's 1999. That's like over 20 years ago now, I think. Yeah.
yeah,
Like it's
23.
like, so when you watch it, it does feel nostalgic, but I remember this, but it was a different time. Like it was just a different time. And
Mm-hmm.
it's like it's not just like a different time because like years have gone by. like just the attitudes and the behavior, like you'll see that shit would not fly now. Like it
Hmm.
was a different time. Crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, let's check it out. I think too, like it is a bit of a time machine. You're talking about Kurt Loder, and you're talking about what's her name?
Donda Lewis. Yes.
Yeah, Ananda Lewis. Yeah, like I remember them. Like I think by '99, I think MTV for me had started its slide. Once TRL was the thing, like I MTV was kind of dying for me. I had a real problem with the idea of videos playing like two-thirds of the video and then having to hear from what's his face,
Carson Daly.
yeah, who I don't dislike now, but like I was like, if I want to watch the video, I want to see the video. Like I'm watching music television to watch the music videos. And when they kept getting cut off and then they just moved to the next one, and then it was all pop, it was all in
Yep.
sync and Backstreet Boys
Yes.
and Christina Aguilera and Britney
Brittany.
Spears. Like, not that I necessarily hated that music or anything, but like that was a little too poppy for me at that time. Like, because I was a grown up boy. I was like 18, 19, 20. Um, and I was too cool for that. You know what I mean?
And that's
And
addressed.
so
That's totally addressed in the doc too, because that
that's
whole
cool.
crowd was anti that. Um,
Hmm.
so it's really, yeah, I remember that too. I'm not gonna lie, like I was more, I was more corporate. So while I wasn't so like Britney and Backstreet, even Puffy was considered kind of, you know, pop
Hmm.
adjacent, compared to like who was playing the festival. Um, a little disappointed that DMX didn't get featured because I know DMX did perform at that festival. Like there's
Hmm.
like a video of him doing Rough Riders, stop, drop. Anyway, but yeah, no, that okay. I've said enough. I think we can move on from this one,
Yeah.
but I had fun talking about it.
Yeah. I'll check it out for sure. Um, I think I'm trying to think. Should I will go over the two things that I've done that are quick because I think I can talk about Ted Lasso real quick. In that I've only watched 2 episodes so far. So we decided to do a rewatch with my kids. We finished watching. We had been watching Young Sheldon, got caught up on that, and so we're always trying to find something we watch with our kids, whether it's just while we're eating dinner or whatever. And decided to give Ted Lasso a shot. And Ted Lasso is like it's just a fantastic feel good show. There are some adult jokes in there, like and because it takes place in London, a lot of the characters are British. So much like Billy Butcher, you'll get every now and then you get like, "Oi, cunt," like, and and some profanity for sure. I mean, it's a sports team, and they play these characters while they're comedic. It's not a drama at all. Um, they're believable athletes. Like a lot of these guys have played some soccer and sorry, football and done this. Um, but man, it is such a good show. Like I'm excited, like my kids to get into it. I at what 11, 13, and 14, like some of the jokes might still go over their heads. Some of the jokes are a little pop culture, and at 14 pop culture hasn't happened to you yet. It's something from the past, so some of that stuff slips. But I mean, the dialogue that Jason Sudeikis delivers just minute by minute is just fantastic. Like he's so good, and the premise of the show, and it's not a spoiler because they give it away in the first episode, is that this woman she's very she's rich, played by Hannah Waddingham, who you fall in love with the show as the show goes. um but she divorces from her husband, who is incredibly rich. And in the divorce, she gets their soccer team, which
Mm.
he loved. And so she fires their coach and hires Ted Lasso, who was a college football, like American football coach, who in his first year won a championship from it with a team that shouldn't have won. And so she immediately hires him, coming off of this victory, to come coach her soccer team in the UK with no experience. He knows nothing about soccer. And come to find out that the reason behind that is she wants to tank her husband's team because
Oh.
he loves it so much. She wants him to see his team die. But what she doesn't count on is like she literally hired the single nicest human being on the planet. So like this Ted Lasso character, the people around him, the culture that he creates within the show, um, is incredible. Like the kindness that they use to like win people over, is it's unreal. Like a show in today's day and age, you don't think a show could last that was so much about being kind to people. Like we rely on sarcasm, we rely on all this other stuff, and there's definitely a lot of the other characters bring that. But like they first meet Brett Goldstein, who's a British stand-up comic, and he plays Hercules at the end of Thor. Like he's
Yes.
the one in the but he's like this grizzled old grumpy soccer player, like he's on his way out. And so when they first meet with him, they have this thing, and they're like, man, he sure seems mad. And the only thing that Ted Lasso said, he's like, yeah, but he's gonna be really mad when we win him over. Like that's just like the energy he brings. Like it's just everything's gonna be okay. First thing he does is like write "believe" on a sign and tapes it above his door. And like it's just like I said, it's a feel good show. Like everybody comes around. Uh, I don't remember if they do it in the first season, but in the second and third seasons, you have like an almost typical British Christmas episode.
Yes.
I think it's the third season where you get like a couple of like almost themed episodes. You have like the British type rom com episode that has that feel to it, without you know becoming that. It's more of an homage to that. Um, but shit, it's so good. Like you can't help but like all of the characters. It's well made. It's got Apple TV money behind it. So
How long is each episode?
in the beginning, they're 25, 30, 35 minutes, somewhere in there.
Good.
So it goes real quick.
Good.
As it finds its legs in the later seasons, there's a couple episodes that get up around 45,
Okay.
which you don't really mind. Once you're into it, you're kind of wanting to hear these stories, and the things they're saying. And I think what's really interesting is it's a very successful show. It's very popular. I think it's nominated for like 20 Emmys this year.
Whoa.
Yeah, and the next season is going to be the last one. Like
Good.
they know where they're going. They said maybe they'll do a spin-off or they'll do something with the characters afterwards. But for the story they're telling, it ends after this next season. And it's what's really funny is that it came out of Ted Lasso was an American commercial. Because I don't know if it was a commercial for a beverage or if it was for like Adidas or it was for something, but you can look up the Ted Lasso commercial. The character was not quite what he is on the show now,
Hmm.
but you can see it like if you watch the show and then go find the commercial,
DNA.
you can see, yeah, you can see where it came from. But yeah, I think if you look back, shit, it's probably been a year or more, but we talked about it on this
Oh,
show
I
before a
remember.
long time ago.
Yeah.
And I can't recommend it enough. The 20 Emmys is very telling. But there's no holes in the show. There's one episode that I can see in season, I think it's 3, that's a little kind of controversial because it's so weird compared to the rest of the show. Um, but other than that, like, and I actually like the episode. I don't have any complaints about the episode, but some people do. But otherwise, it's almost a flawless show. The acting is great. Everybody is cool. Like I said, you fall in love with the actors. Like Hannah Waddingham, she's been in stuff. She's in Sex Education on Netflix, but small part. She's been in some other stuff. But I didn't really know who she was. And on here, I fall in love with her. You have Brett Goldstein, who I'd never heard of. You fall in love with him. Um, God, I can't remember the girl's name now. I gotta look it up. She's hilarious. She's blonde. She's funny. She's British. I will tell you right now. She is Juno Temple.
Okay.
She's fucking adorable. Like she's great. Uh, it's an amazing show. So rewatching that, and then because of our conversations that we've been having about other stuff, mostly Marvel lately, I have decided that it's time for me to rewrite my list of Marvel films in the order that I would put them in, because we've had lots of discussions about that. Um, at least, and instead of just looking at the list and doing it by memory, I've decided that I need to rewatch and put them in order as I go, which has been very interesting to me. I've only finished phase one. I'm halfway through Iron Man 3, which is the start of phase two. But my phase one came out very differently than I would have expected. Going off of memory, I always would have put Iron Man at the top, if not Avengers, right up in there. And I watched Iron Man. I love it. It's fantastic. Like, for what it was the perfect launching point for the MCU. I know technically the Incredible Hulk is the launching point of the MCU, because it takes place beforehand. Actually, it takes place afterwards, because Tony Stark is Tony Stark by that point, right? Tony Stark, as we know him, he becomes the consultant for them.
Still?
It may even take place. It might take. I think it actually. The Incredible Hulk actually takes place after Iron Man 2,
Oh,
because they've introduced the idea of the Avengers, and they have told Tony that he can't be in the Avengers. They want Iron Man, but they don't want Tony Stark. So Tony Stark can be a consultant. And so at the very end of the Incredible Hulk, when he goes and talks to the general, when he talks to General Thunderbolt Ross, he's the consultant that they sent, because the idea is that they want to drive him as far away from the Hulk as they can. So they send the most annoying person they can, which is Tony Stark, which you don't get in the movies. If you watch it on Disney Plus, you can go into Marvel and you can actually watch it by phases and in release order. But in between there, they also put in their little 4 or 5, 10-minute one shots. And one of the one shots was called The Consultant. And that's when they talk about how Tony Stark is the consultant and how they're going to send him to talk to Thunderbolt Ross. And there's a few other little funky ones in there that are fun. But my list for phase one, like I said, is vastly different than I expected. Yes, the Incredible Hulk ends up at the bottom. It'll probably stay at the bottom for most of it, but watching it, I don't hate that movie.
yeah.
Like that's the one thing I can say about the MCU for me, and I know some people might feel differently, but for me, there's no movie in the MCU that I don't enjoy. And there's no movie in the MCU that I couldn't watch again. Like, I could go back, I could watch The Incredible Hulk tomorrow and be happy watching it. It's weird, it's weird now with Ruffalo being the Hulk for
Right.
so long. Ed Norton did a good job.
Yeah.
He's Ed Norton. He's a great actor. He's just a little harder to work with than Mark Ruffalo, and that's kind of public knowledge, and that's fine. But what's trippy is, so yeah, I had Incredible Hulk at the bottom. I had Iron Man 2 right above that, which is kind of what I expected. Although I did like Iron Man 2 a lot more than I remember liking it. It had its issues, but it was not bad. And then I had at number 4, I had Iron Man, which I was convinced was my number 1. And it's no knock on it, but when I watched Thor, because that's the order that came, Thor actually came after Iron Man 2.
Yes.
But where Iron Man, or where Thor 2 in my memory, and I'll find out for sure soon, but where Thor 2 went a little too dark and a little too Shakespearean and a little too whatever, the first one was great. Like the Shakespearean feel, much as I'm actually not a Shakespeare fan, I don't enjoy Shakespeare's work very much. It was really good, and I think part of that is that Loki makes such a great villain. He's sympathetic.
Yes.
In a lot of the ways, not quite the same, but in a lot of the ways that Killmonger made such a good villain. Like, you kind of get yeah, he kind of got screwed a little, and he's pissed about it. And Hiddleston's great. Like, I love Tom Hiddleston, and it is the genesis of a character that we see for a very, very, very long time. Now going into phase 4, you're gonna have Loki season 2. So Loki's around.
Hmm.
forever. So Thor actually finished above Iron Man for me, and then Avengers was number two, but Captain America is my number one. Um, Part of that I think is the acting. Part of it's the nostalgia. Like Cap just ends up throughout the MCU being my favorite character, anyways.
Same.
So and that's the thing about these lists is they are personal, right? Like if you go through it, it'll be different. But I'm really curious to see where this list goes for me now that I'm starting phase two. I'm kind of doing the list in two bits. So I have by phase, right? So I can just kind of organize those, but I have the overall list too. So I should end up with 20 something. And I think I'm going to put the shows in there too. Um, so it's an undertaking,
Yes, I was gonna say that's some
I've,
serious dedication, my friend.
yeah. So I've only watched 6.5 films, um, but it's been interesting. Like I said, to watch them and try and base my rankings off, yes, how much I liked them before, but also with a fresh set of eyes on them has been kind of eye opening. Because I
Do
think
you
way back when we did it on this show, we did our lists years ago. It's based on what I remember. I'm making my list on, I think I like this the most, I think I like this the most, whatever. And I expect Endgame and Infinity War to end up at the top. Just I've watched those enough times to know that they're going to be pretty fucking hard to beat. Um, and so like I know where those going to end up, but there's a lot of stuff in the middle that I'm really curious to see where I move it around.
do you think? Well, I mean, it's probably almost unfair based on just what you just said, but like, do you think you'll have a favorite phase?
I might, I'm betting that it won't be phase two. Um, just because like I know that Iron Man 3, watching it and being halfway done, it really almost feels like kind of a jumble of movies because you have this bit of time where he launches himself to Tennessee, where he gets stuck with little Harley. And he has that moment there, which does tie into the story, but it doesn't feel like the same film as him dealing with the bad guy who then isn't actually the Mandarin. He's just an actor because this other guy's the back. It's just like it's almost too crazy. Like it's too weird of a story. And it doesn't the bits of it don't necessarily land together. It's almost too ambitious for what it was.
I
Um,
remember when I saw it in the theater, I remember actually liking it more. Like I'll say it. Like I remember in the theater, I remember leaving satisfied and then kind of my
mhm,
opinion souring later. And the reason why I was satisfied was because I felt like it's so cool that Iron Man's having to kind of figure out how to be a hero without a suit. I felt like that was a pretty brave thing to
mhm.
do. And then I think towards the end, I got serious Beverly Hills Cop vibes, like as far as like the standoff and the shootout at the house or whatever.
That's in the beginning, like when they nuke his house.
Oh no, there's another one at the end, like
Oh,
where
okay, okay,
like,
okay.
it's like we're literally no that yeah that was nuts. But yeah, there's another you'll see towards the end.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think the director actually might have even worked on Beverly Hills Cop, which is why, or maybe he said he was kind of going for that. Um, but yeah, and then also by the end of the movie, you're kind of like it seemed like that. Yeah, I think that his contract was up, like, and they had to renegotiate for him to come
Yeah.
back. And like, oh, sorry, psych, I'm not done. Like, I'm coming back. By
And
that
it
movie, it
is
was
it
done to
is
like,
crazy to think that phase two out of we'll say three phases, right? Because he's not going to be in phase four. But the beginning of phase two is the end of Iron Man films.
yeah.
Like from that point on, he's a supporting character in all kinds of stuff, but he's a supporting character. Um, and it's a trip. It's really weird to think that you're arguably your most influential character in the MCU. Like we wouldn't have the MCU as it stands without him. Um, isn't really major anymore to the by name. Like he's not getting. There's no Iron Man 4. You don't get whatever. And now we're going to see Thor 2, which was questionable, and then Thor ends up getting four movies, one in each phase. You got um, Captain America getting a couple films in here, like all these other people getting films, and Iron Man's just done and saving the universe in his own way by the end. But it's a trip.
which is why I love Infinity War so much, because I feel like Iron Man, I noticed it. Like I felt like Iron Man as like a character was just kind of getting lamer and lamer and lamer as time went on, and just kind of more like just who cares, right? So especially in Civil War, he's arguably like the bad guy, right? So
Yeah, yeah,
then like so finally I just felt like Infinity War not only redeemed Iron Man, but actually just made him like that dude. Because like Cap has like all of like 3 minutes. I mean, I'm exaggerating, but like he has his moments. Don't get me wrong, but
hmm
he's definitely it's an Iron Man centric film, Infinity War, and
yeah,
I was just so happy because I was like, good, like you guys are gonna give him like his due, um, because yeah, I feel like after the first Iron Man, for me, it was like just kind of down. Actually, no, I'm sorry. After Avengers 2012, because that he shined in that movie,
yeah,
then
yeah,
it was like down, down. Oh, I'm a bad guy. Uh, down, and then all of a sudden it's like, dude, he's Earth's best defender. Like
yeah,
even Cap said it.
yeah.
So
It's going to be interesting. Like I actually I've also not really looked ahead to pay attention to what the order of films is. So no Iron Man 3, but I like off the top of my head, I don't even know what comes after Iron Man 3.
I do,
So
but I'm not gonna say anything.
I'm really taking it in as much as I can with the idea
As a viewer.
of yeah. And it's been cool. Like obviously I love the Marvel movies. I love the MCU. For me it's something special. My kids have gone to maybe not the first ones, but maybe by Avengers.
Okay.
And since then, we've seen every movie in the theater.
That's amazing.
Like, so it's what our family does,
That's
and
awesome.
so it's important to us, and so it's been really cool. So I'm excited to keep going with that. I hope to have phase two done in the next couple of weeks and have another idea of where I'm at. But yeah, it's super cool. And I've got one more thing on my list, but do you want to cover yours next?
Yeah, sure. I'm actually gonna do a bit of a improvisational topic really quick. So you've watched Breaking Bad, right?
It's been a while, but yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
good. Did you watch Better Call Saul?
I have not. I
Okay,
have not, and I cannot. I can't explain why. Like I don't have a good reason for not watching Better Call Saul. Like
right.
I've only heard good things. I love everybody in it. I watched Nobody not too long ago.
Yes.
So like I love him. I've actually always been a Bob Odenkirk fan. He did a stupid um Adult Swim cartoon called Tom. I think he was in Tom Goes to the Mayor. Um, but like he's been around for a long time in comedy and animation and stuff.
I wasn't aware of that.
And yeah, I love the guy. I just for some reason I haven't started Better Call Saul, and I know this is the last season,
Oh yeah.
and it's just about done, right? It's not done yet.
It's literally the final episode, and I'm sad. I'm telling you, I'm sad. The final episode is airing on Monday, and the name of it, actually, the episode is called I saw it tonight. Saul Gone. Like that's the name of the episode. So it's just like,
Well,
oh, like I yeah, dude.
I
I
know the episode last week, the week before was called Breaking Bad, right?
correct.
Yeah.
No, they're going out with a bang. Um, I I loved uh Breaking Bad. And what made me think of it, honestly, was when you were talking about Ted Lasso, and you were talking about how there's not any weak episodes, there's one weird episode, and I went right to Breaking Bad with the Fly episode. So, and then that's how we got to Better Call Saul. So, I did not watch Better Call Saul because I was like, you can't make lightning strike twice. It seems like a cash grab. Like Breaking Bad was a story. It's over. Leave it be. And it's a prequel. How do you shoot a prequel when the people are older? It's weird.
Yeah.
But let me tell you, um, it's worth it. It's just like the way Rogue One makes, the original trilogy better. Dude, Better Call Saul makes Breaking Bad even more epic. And Saul himself, Jimmy McGill is his real name.
hmm
Whew, what a character. And all the characters, I mean, the guys who make this show, Vince Gilligan and Peter Gould, they're legends.
Well, Vince
I
Gilligan worked on X Files, didn't he?
you know better than I. You know
I
better than
think he did.
I could look it up, but what I'll say is this. Correct. Actually, I just looked. He did. You're right.
Yeah.
Talented dudes. So what I'll say is this. I when I started the show, I was skeptical. But then I was sucked in immediately because the characters are so strong. And that's what makes even Breaking Bad so strong. The characters themselves, they are very Myers-Briggsable. So if you want to know what an ENTP is, actually, I would say Saul Goodman starts off as an ENFP. He's a feeler. He's always had that trickster vibe, but he becomes more of the trickster as things go on. And he goes from ENFP to ENTP. He can't help himself. And you know, and it's and you see Tuco, like Tuco shows up, Tuco Salamanca shows up in season 1, and I think that was brilliant. It was genius because Tuco Salamanca is a crazy motherfucker, and like so when you see this dude from Breaking Bad in this show, and he's just as crazy, but he's like it's a prequel, you're sucked in. But I'm watching this. And Mike, dude,
Yeah.
Mike is like, oh, Mike starts off in this show as like this attendant, like a parking lot attendant for Saul as he leaves work. So it's just cool even seeing Mike, and you see Mike's origin story because Mike used to be a cop and out in Philly. That actor is amazing. So Mike's there, and then of course we've got what's his name, Gus Fring. So you literally see the origins of how Gus became, you know, started his meth operation, how Mike got involved in this situation and became like Gus's like consigliere, whatever, enforcer, and how not even Saul, Jimmy McGill, like goes from like mailroom clerk guy at his brother's fucking law firm to Saul Goodman. And the storytelling is so great, especially all through the show, because there are these black and white segments that take place after Breaking Bad. So basically, Better Call Saul is both a prequel and a sequel to Breaking Bad. I'm telling you, the storytelling, I'm getting chills again. The storytelling is next level. And I talk about anime, and some anime, the most epic anime, like Cowboy Bebop or even Evangelion, when everything's ending, like Breaking Bad too, like shit just keeps getting worse and worse and bleaker and bleaker, and it's sad, but it kind of reflects life. So I'm literally kind of weeping in a way because I'm seeing these characters who I've come to love come to their demise, you know. And it's like, you know, it's not really a spoiler because if they're not showing up in Breaking Bad, well then you pretty much know what happened.
They probably didn't make it. Yeah.
So but it's like but I think that's the beauty of it. Like you like I think you said this, Kevin. I think like someone does this to you, like they want to hurt you, you know. So it's like they want to make you love these characters and then kill them off. Like we can't kill them off until you love them. And I don't know if I'm ready. I don't know if I'm ready to like see whatever happens to Saul. I don't know. It's not a spoiler, but like I don't know what's gonna happen to him. But I will say though, even though you love Saul because he's so slick and he thinks on his feet, you know, I gotta admit, like these last couple episodes, I'm like, Saul, you're an asshole, dude. Like you kind of whatever's coming to you, you kind of earned it. Like I'm done. Like I'm done seeing you fuck up, basically. But I gotta say, and the only reason why I watched the show finally is because like I didn't want to be spoiled. So the fact that you know about the show, you've heard people talk about it, but haven't been spoiled at all, is such a testament to your discipline or your blinders or whatever you've got going on. Because I just like I just binged season 6 because I was tired of like hearing stuff. Like I heard one guy say, "Okay, my time is done." And I'm like, "Nah!" Like I liked him, and I was just okay. I'm done finding out after the fact. I gotta see this shit as it happens, and now I'm seeing shit as it happens. So anyway, that was Better Call Saul. So I can like throw the mic back to you, like BC Boys, pass the mic. And then if it's time, we'll go over everything all at once. But keep going. What did you say?
Well, I was going to say, I just saw something today that Vince Gilligan has said that, now that Better Call Saul is done, now that Breaking Bad is done, he doesn't want to work in that universe or in that kind of story. He's actually, his next thing that he's working on, very X-Files ish. Like he's going kind of back to that. So I'm super curious to see what that is, because while I don't remember the X-Files very well, because I think that was like 95 ish, 90, maybe even 93 ish. Um, and it went on for a while, and I watched all of it. It's been a very long time.
Mhm.
I think I tried to start a rewatch not too long ago, and it wasn't that it was bad or anything. It was actually solid, really held up. I just, for whatever reason, stopped watching it. Um, but I always loved the X Files. So I got a lot of faith in Vince Gilligan. If he made the X Files, and if he made Breaking Bad, and if Call Saul is as great as obviously everybody says it is, I mean, dude's got a pedigree at this point.
Yes.
So I'm excited for that. So yeah, so the only other thing that I finished season 2 of Upload tonight before we started recording. Upload is on Amazon Prime. It is definitely a comedy. There's a tinge of drama in there. Do you know what it's about at all? You seen any
Yeah,
previews?
I was recommended to me. I think people upload their consciousness to like this so they can live forever or something like that.
Yeah, it's basically like if you die, they have set it up so that when you die, you can upload yourself into this computer afterlife, right? And so this guy it ends up in a car accident. They upload him. His girlfriend at the time uploads him. She's rich and he's not, but she pays for him to go into the fancy upload. And so, shenanigans ensue. The first season's really good, and it starts to unravel that he didn't just die, like he was just in a car accident. He was murdered, and come to find out that part of his memory during the upload was intentionally removed.
Mm.
So like he doesn't know what happened. So you've got a little bit of a mystery. It's definitely funny. Like, it takes place in the future. So one of the things that they do is like all these corporations have merged. So you get like Exxon McDonald's and like all this weird shit. Like it's hilarious. But it's smart too. Like it is a relatively smart show. The acting is all really funny. I don't know that it's funny talking about Vince Gillen, the guy that plays the cigarette smoking man in the X Files, is in these first 2 seasons a little bit. Um, but otherwise, like I don't know, there's a lot of names in there. I really like it's Robbie Amell, who is Arrow's cousin, Stephen Amell,
Wow.
the guy that played Arrow.
Yeah.
It's his cousin, and um, he's really good in it. Like I didn't expect him to be good, but he's funny. He's definitely more like boyishly charming than Stephen Amell. Like Stephen Amell was, Studley. Don't get me wrong. If you watch Arrow, I was like, I kind of want to be that dude. But Robbie Amell is very, boyish, charming. Andy Allo plays kind of the girl that um, becomes the love interest as the story goes on. She's great. She's super cute. Like I hadn't heard of her. She's super pretty.
Check this out.
Um,
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 Andy Allo is a Cameroonian American singer. Cameroonian American
yeah,
singer
she's a singer
songwriter.
too. That's right.
She released her first of 3 albums in 2009 and joined Prince's band, the New Power Generation, in 2011.
Yeah, yeah. I
That
think
is
I
so
do
cool.
remember
I
that.
just had to throw that in there. I'll keep going. I'm just
Yeah,
looking at the cast as you're
yeah. I forgot about that.
talking.
But I mean, she's really good. She's like I said, she's super cute. Like she's really pretty. Um, but the story is fun. Season 2 is it picks up where it's going and actually gets really like surprisingly intelligent in the last few episodes. Like it kind of drops a bomb on you and you're like, shit, that's like crazy to think about. The only weird thing is like it's only 7 episodes in season 2, and it feels like there should have been an 8th episode. Like it just kind of stops, and then it's going to go into season 3 when they're ready. Uh, but it was a weird stopping point. The only other show that I think has a weirder one, there was a show on Netflix that's finally getting a second season called Warrior Nun, which is a weird, like, kind of cool, kind of fun show. But like that one ended in the middle of like this massive fight, and then it just like kind of ended at a standoff, and then it ends and you're like, cool, I'm ready for the next episode. And they're like, nope, that's what we got. You're just like, what?
Did it get canceled?
No, it's coming back. And
Okay.
Warrior Nun second season is coming out soon.
Yeah,
and I enjoyed that show too, but it was weird. Definitely a weird ending point. I would say that's the biggest problem I have with Upload is where season 2 just kind of stopped. I feel like it wasn't necessarily the wrong place to end it. It was just the way that they ended it. It felt like something else was going to happen in the season, and then it didn't. Like the end of season 1 is definitely the end of season 1. Like when that hits, you're like, this is a season finale.
right.
And this one didn't have that feeling. This like felt like there should have been an 8th episode. But that said, it's a very enjoyable show. Easy to consume. Again, probably 30 minutes an episode, give or take. This last episode I think was 40 minutes, but otherwise they're around 30.
All right, you know me pretty well. If you had to choose between Upload or Ted Lasso for me to watch, which would you say?
I would say Ted Lasso. It's so smart, and the dialogue is so good, and the characters are all, for as much as I enjoy the acting and the characters in Upload, the characters in Ted Lasso are very fleshed out and very real. And for what little drama there is in the show, that drama is really good too. Like there's just nothing wrong with Ted Lasso. There's a reason that it has 20 Emmy nominations and Upload doesn't have any.
So here's my other question. Okay.
Yeah.
Is okay between Ted Lasso and Schitt's Creek?
That's an interesting one because I even go back and forth because before Ted Lasso dropped, Schitt's Creek was hands down my favorite like sitcom type show. Schitt's Creek is a little more ridiculous. If like, have you ever seen anything that Eugene Levy has done? Have you ever seen Spinal Tap or God damn it! Now I wish, for once in my life, I wish Pete was here because he would get them all right for me. A Mighty Wind.
Okay,
Best in
I did not
Show.
get A Mighty Wind, dude. I watched that in like 2005, and mind you, that was a long time ago. But I remember I did not get that shit. I was like,
So those are also A Mighty Wind, Waiting for Guffman, um, Best in Show. The thing about those is it's Eugene Levy, it's Catherine O'Hara, and a handful of other people, Christopher Guest. But this is Christopher Guest treats it like his acting troupe. So they do, most of those films are improvised. Like they have the story, but the dialogue is improvised, and they're fantastic in their own way. And Schitt's Creek is definitely not that. Like it's produced by Eugene Levy's son, and he helped make the show. And if you watch it and you finish it, there's a great documentary. I think it shows up on Netflix. It's just a short, like 45-minute documentary, but they talk about the show and how, you know, Dan Levy came to his dad with the idea, and they worked it, and how when they shot the pilot, they actually were going to have somebody else play the mom, and I don't remember if she couldn't do it or what happened, and they begged Catherine O'Hara to do it, and then the rest is history. Catherine O'Hara, and she's fucking hilarious, but it's all over the top comedy. Like it's definitely like, it's a comedy. Like the shit that happens is funny. Like the characters are all caricatures in their own way. It is a fantastic show for like the LGBTQ set, in that it very much normalized gay characters in a way that most television hasn't. There's a bit of dialogue in one of the early episodes where this girl's trying to figure out whether Dan Levy's character is gay or not, and like he's trying to explain it, and so they're in like a wine shop, and he's like, well, usually I like Merlot, but sometimes I like a Cabernet, and every once in a while, and so he's kind of pointing to a little bit of fluidity there, but
yes.
it is a fantastic show, and it's another really feel good show, but it's definitely more over the top than Ted Lasso.
Got it.
Like other than Ted Lasso being impossibly kind, like unrealistically nice. Um, that show is definitely a um, more focused and at least more realistic
Okay.
depiction of people. That's probably more your speed. But I mean, if you're ready for the ridiculousness of Schitt's Creek, and it's not so over the top that it's ridiculous, but everybody's just a little bit of a caricature of what their character would be in real life, you know.
So,
So
and another thing is like, I will say, for some reason, the fucking I keep bringing it up. The Good Place. The Good Place to
mhm.
me is uber ridiculous, but I liked it. So like, like what? I'm trying to figure out why I liked that. You know, even though that show, maybe it's because I think Kristen Bell's hot. Like I don't know, maybe that's what it was. But like,
It's
you know,
definitely part of it, and so is Jamila Jamil,
yes,
the girl who is
exactly.
like,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Tahani.
yeah, who is the villain on She-Hulk.
Yes,
She
looking
plays
forward to that.
Titania in She-Hulk. I think The Good Place had you guessing. Like that's the thing too. There was a little bit of a mystery to The Good Place, and then the longer that show went on, just the more kind of deep it got.
Yes.
Um, and I don't know the Schitt's Creek necessarily goes there, but man, do you fall in love with the characters on Schitt's Creek?
Okay.
Like you really, really do. Um, I have, I think I watched Schitt's Creek and I turned around and I watched it again within like a week, the whole thing, and I would happily watch the entire series anytime. It
Okay.
is like easily, like I said, one of my top 5 favorite shows, top 2 favorite comedies, and I go, like I said, I go back and forth between that and Ted Lasso. Um, but I think I said it before when we talked about it on this show before. The difference that I have and the reason that I think Schitt's Creek is still my number one is that Schitt's Creek told his entire story. Like I know the beginning, the middle, and the end of the Schitt's Creek story. Ted Lasso isn't done yet, and depending on where that ends, you know, maybe it wouldn't be as good as Schitt's Creek. I don't know. I don't expect it to drop in quality. I'm really curious to see because I don't want it to end. That's the thing, right? Like they know where they're taking it, and it's going to end, and I don't know that I'm ready for that. Kind of like you're talking about Better Call Saul.
Sure,
Like
yes.
I don't know. I don't know where they're going. I don't know how they're going to end it. Um, so I'm super curious and apprehensive, and I don't want them to take my Ted Lasso away.
Yeah,
You
man.
know,
It's
but that one's it's super good.
yeah. Well, I mean, I think I can maybe go into everything everywhere all at once.
Yeah, we got to look at.
Uh, but I just, yeah, I just got to say though, like going back to even the pre-show though, like I remember when Smallville did end, right? I was sad, okay, but I also felt like the show kind of went 3 seasons longer than it needed to. I feel like once
Yep.
Mike Rosenbaum left, but like the last couple seasons were a bit like much, like painful. But you had Erica Durance, cool. And I think that it kind of found its legs back like towards the end, especially that finale was actually pretty strong, I think.
Yeah,
And of course,
I love the last couple episodes, and of course they brought Rosenbaum back for that.
yes.
So
But when it was over, it was just kind of like, okay, I now finally have like freedom again. This is before streaming, right? Or was streaming was just starting, but
no,
like
it was before streaming because it ended in 2010. So I think Netflix was still a DVD delivery service
it
at
was
that
Hulu
point.
was the first one. I remember watching it on
Yeah,
Hulu after
yeah.
the fact. So that's why I mean it was just starting. I remember like watching it on Hulu, but like either way, it was like I remember like like it was appointment TV. I finally had my life back because like there was definitely was like those nights when it was on. Yeah,
Hmm.
no, I'm not. Andrew, let's go somewhere. Nope, Smallville. Like I'm not.
Well,
I'm not
so it's
leaving.
funny when you think about streaming. I think the precursor to streaming, and I was an early adopter to this, was the DVR. So I had a TiVo back by the time season 2 of Lost started, I think. So was that 2006 ish, somewhere in there,
That's right.
2004? um, I had a TiVo, and so I was recording shows, and that gives you your freedom back a little bit.
Yeah.
And then you had the ability to fast forward commercials, and you had these
That's
benefits
awesome.
that I think legitimately led to streaming. Like
Oh
people
yeah.
saw DVRs and stuff like that and the advantages, and somebody at Netflix was like, we can just do that, you know? Like
Yeah.
let's just do
And they
that.
pulled it off.
Yep.
So
And then Hulu obviously, but
I'm gonna
go
talk
ahead.
about a film that is described as an absurdist comedy drama film. It's written and directed by Daniel Kwan and Daniel Scheinert, collectively known as the Daniels, and they produced it with drum roll, the Russo brothers. And basically it stars, I'm totally like cheating here. It stars Michelle Yeoh as a Chinese American woman being audited by the IRS. But basically, you know, she discovers that there is a parallel universe. And basically her husband is played by I'm gonna get his name wrong, K Hui Kwan, I think. But K Hui Kwan played Short Round and he played Data. So I
Mhm.
gotta tell you guys right now, the performances in this film are what make it. Not only the performances, but the special effects and just the storytelling. So yeah, dude, like the best way to come into this movie is to like not really know, like to know as little as possible. So you've seen the trailers, it looks nuts. I saw the trailers, it looked nuts. I love Michelle Yeoh. Like, yo, and by the way, I almost said yo. Hope I'm saying your name, saying your name. I cannot talk. I'm too excited. Okay. So I never saw Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. I started watching it, but then like it went from like free Amazon to pay Amazon again. I was so mad. So anyway, but I liked what I saw. But everything else that she's been in, I like her. I like her a lot. But
Mhm.
in this film, let me tell you guys, like this is it. Like this is the one where I think we're gonna see her on that podium as best actress. Like everyone nails it. Everyone brings their A game. Let me tell you, I don't know if you guys know who Janie Slate is. I have a crush on Janie
I
Slate.
love Jenny Slate. I
I
love Jenny.
I have a
She
crush on
dated
her.
Captain America.
I was just gonna say that. So Chris Evans, you lucky dog. But have you seen the articles where they actually talk about how Jenny Slate had to endure like people
Yes.
on the internet saying, "Oh yeah, he can do better than her." Like,
Yeah.
man, tripping. She's cute. Anyway,
And
she's
she's
in,
hilarious.
and
She's
she's
crazy.
hilarious.
Like she's yeah, I love her.
So like yeah, so her role in the movie is funny. Jamie Lee Curtis is great. I because like you don't like yeah, she's in the movie. She's actually the IRS person who's auditing Michelle Yeoh's character, and she plays mean, no nonsense auditor like you wouldn't believe. But then there's some surprises, you know, obviously because this movie is absurdist. You know, they get the multiverse like right. Like I mean, I remember when there was like a link or a meme that said, you know, something like the real multiverse movie is this movie, not like Doctor Strange. And I remember thinking to myself, why has it got to be a competition? Like stop the madness. Like what do you stop the hate? It doesn't have to be negative, right? But yeah, this is a better movie. I'll just be real. Like it's a way better movie in my opinion. And it's just like the movie has heart. Like the heart in this film is like you talk about Ted Lasso celebrating goodness and kindness. And I think that this film does that too. And maybe that's a thing that we're hopefully going to see in more and more films. Like, you know, a theme. Like the fact is, like maybe as a people, like maybe we are entering the age of Aquarius. Who knows? Like kindness, it's like it's not the go-to. Like I think it's easier to be a dick. It's easier to destroy than create. But like it's amazing what kindness and love can do. And I think that that's what this film ultimately celebrates. I think that's the theme. I got to continue now. James Hong, I know he's a legendary actor. He plays her grandfather, her father rather, and then their daughter. You know, whew, her acting is amazing. And I think she's a newcomer. Her name is Stephanie Shu, but she's great. And the whole movie just starts off like normal, like they have a laundromat. She runs the laundromat. Her husband, you know, Short Round is like a super nice guy. The daughter's like kind of rebellious. And you can see kind of the fractures happening within the family. But then the multiverse portal opens and then the adventure begins. Um, I was so. Oh, here we go. Um, the film received widespread critical acclaim, received praise for its imagination, direction, Yo, Shu, and Kwan's performances, who I said mother, daughter, and father, and handling of themes such as existentialism, nihilism, and Asian American identity. And it surpassed Hereditary as A24's highest grossing film. The buzz, getting chills. The buzz for this film is beyond earned. I can't wait for you to see it when it hits on streaming. Anybody who's watching this podcast, again, don't be shy. Like, put your comments on what you thought of it. Below. I haven't said jack squat really about the plot or anything like that, and I'm glad I didn't. But at the same time, I'm wanting to because it's so damn good. But I remember even getting a little teary eyed in many places, and I think that there's also oh yeah, really cool factoid. The film was actually originally written for Jackie Chan. Jackie Chan was
Yes.
supposed to be the main character, and I guess when when it didn't work out, they rewrote the film for her. And I gotta tell you, yeah, no, it's better. I mean, this is definitely, we 2 weeks ago we had an episode on strong women characters, and let me tell you, Michelle Yeoh's character in this movie is 1,000,000% like fits the bill. And she's vulnerable, but she's strong. And it's funny. It's just so funny. There's some funny shit in this movie. And the combat scenes, there's combat because there's gotta be combat. Come on, it's Michelle Yeoh, like
Yeah.
so good. All right, I'm done. I'm done ranting and gushing. Please see the movie.
Yeah. I'm excited for it. Like I'm really, really ready for it to drop on streaming. I was trying to find it the other day and see when it was going to drop, and I couldn't find something that said this is the day that it drops. So um I'm hoping it's soon. I thought it was in August, but I'm not 100% sure. But as soon as I see it, much like Black Phone, like I watched Black Phone, then I dropped. So I'm ready to watch Everything Everywhere All at Once when it drops.
By the way, also, I hope this is a spoiler. I don't think it is, but like, I love movies where like it's broken up in segments. So literally, like, there's 3 parts in this movie, and actually, it's broken up. Part 1 is called Everything. Part 2 is called Everywhere, and Part 3 is called All at Once. So it's just so cool how you see like the screen goes black, and then it has like the title, and then you start the movie. Like, so that's kind of art filmy, but it's like it just works. It just works. And when it works, it's also a very good cross-generational film because Gen Z like mentality is all over this. Like, as far as like the daughter and like just like the crazy shit that goes on. There's a fucking raccoon, I think, like, that can talk. Like, anyways, I'm done. Like, I'll just leave. Yeah, I just, he reminded me of like fucking Rocket. Like, there's like, how is Rocket Raccoon in this movie? But like, it works, even though it's like what? Like, so it's like it's not supernatural, but it's multiverse. So that's, anyways. All right, I'm sorry. I just had to get that in.
Yeah, I'm excited for it. I'll definitely check it out.
So
So cool. I think somehow, without without thinking we had anything to talk about, we turned in a good solid hour and a half show, I think. So yeah, I think we've done good. I think next week we should have nearly everybody back. Andy seems to be our big outlier. He seems to struggle making it, which is fine if he has a life. Whatever. I don't know. Is he cooler than us? Probably. But next week Kim should be back. Pete should be back. And
sure.
What's that?
Sorry, it's really weird. My connection's unstable, so I think it like I
Oh,
froze. But keep
yeah, you
going.
froze for a second.
Yeah.
That's okay. I was just saying that everybody should be back next week. Hopefully Andy can be back. We've got stuff to talk about for sure. So we will see everybody next week. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. thank you for leaving any comments that you leave. Leah is still our #1 fan, apparently. It'd be really cool if somebody else would at least pretend to like us, leave us a comment. You know, you can just tell us how much you don't like Pete. That's fine. But yeah, and we'll talk to you next week.
Thanks, everyone.
But what really gets me, like, I fucking love the music in this. Like, it is by far my favorite music in a Disney film because it's got that. You got the big church bells. You got the big classic music feel. The guy that played the Hunchback was the guy that played Mozart and Amadeus.
I like that guy, and he was also the kid in Parenthood. Yeah.
And so, you know, there's a lot of things about the movie itself that I love, and it's funny because I choose it as one of my favorite Disney animated films, but I don't actually remember the story of the movie that well. I remember the music. I remember the big, like I said, the big church bells, the big orchestral stuff, the big like gothic feel to the music, and that's what always got me the most with that one, as opposed to like, yeah, I enjoy watching Little Mermaid with my daughter, and I like the music's all fun. Like if it comes on, I can sing along to Little Mermaid. But it wasn't really a thinking movie. Like it didn't, you know, for me, it doesn't you know, tickle the emotions.
So it's funny you say that though, because like I got this mixtape from a girl that had a crush on me back in like '94. So there's always memories, right? Associations. And on this mixtape, there were songs from Little Mermaid. So how I could be, wish I could be part of that world. Like I know that shit. Like I think that's actually cool. Like I like, or you know, les poissons, hee hee hee. I mean
that's fucking Odo from
No way. I love Odo.
yeah.
Yeah. I was sad when he died. But yeah,
Yes.
okay. I didn't know that. Okay. And he was in Benson.